In our today's lecture, we will cover the skull and we will discuss all the bones that take part in the formation of the skull. Basically, we divide the skull into two parts, the cranium and the face, and we will discuss all the bones individually and we will look at their structure in their different parts that forms the face and the cranium. Before discussing them, let's look at all the bones and so that we get to know about their location. So this is the frontal bone, which is the bone of your skull or the cranium, and as you can see that this lies interiorly, and this is a single bone, and it mostly forms the forehead of your skull, or we can call it the forehead bone. The next is the parietal bone, which forms the sides of your cranium and also the roof of your cranium. And you can see that these are two in numbers and these are joined by the suture, which we will discuss later. For a time being, just remember that these are two in numbers. There are two parietal bones and these form the sides and the roof of your cranium, and these are joined in the midline by a suture. The next is the temporal bone, and we divide this bone into various parts. This is the fan-shaped part of the temporal bone is called the squamous part, which is a very delicate part. This process here is called the zygomatic process of the temporal bone, which articulate with the zygomatic bone, which is your cheekbone. This one is the external acoustic meatus. This is the styloid process. This one over here is the styloid process, and this is a spine-like structure, a very sharp structure, and we know that the styloid process gives attachment to the various muscles. Next is this part over here, which is the mastoid process, and I have already told you that you can feel it behind your ear, and it contains mastoid ear cells. The next is the occipital bone, and this bone forms the posterior part of your skull, and it also takes part in the formation of the base of the skull. This is the sphenoid bone, and this is like a bat shape and it has wings. This wing which is highlighted with green is its lesser wing, and this one is the greater wing, and this forms the middle portion. It covers most of the middle portion of your base of the skull, and this is that bone which basically join the facial bones with the cranial bones. This is the ethmoid bone, and it has various parts. This image is showing the sagittal section of your skull, and these two are called the conchas, the superior and middle conchas. This one is the inferior nasal concha, but the inferior nasal concha is not the part of the ethmoid bone. The two conchas that are the superior and middle nasal conchas, these are the part of the ethmoid bone, and these conchas basically forms the lateral walls of the nasal cavity. This protrusion here is basically the part of the ethmoid bone which lies in the interior part of the base of the skull, and this is called the crista galli, and we will discuss it later. This one here is called the perpendicular plate of the ethmoid bone, and here you can appreciate the different ear sinuses, and we know that there are paranasal sinuses, ethmoidal, sphenoidal, maxillary and frontal sinuses. So these ear cells are basically responsible for the resonance, and here the ethmoidal sinuses lie, and these connect with the nasal cavity. Next we have the bones of the face, and there are total two zygomatic bones of both sides. There will be a right zygomatic bone, and there would be a left zygomatic bone, both cheekbones. Then is the maxilla, which is a single bone, and it forms your upper jaw. Then the two nasal bones which join in the center, two lacrimal bones that lies lateral to the nasal bones, one gummy bone, two palatine bones which forms a hard palate, two inferior concha that I have already told you that the inferior concha are not the part of the ethmoid bone, these are the independent bones, one mandible which forms the lower jaw of your face. These are the sinuses in the frontal bone where the air sinuses lies. You can find the frontal sinuses. These are the sphenoidal sinuses and the ethmoidal sinuses and the maxillary sinuses. So these are all are the paranasal sinuses. We have studied that the mastoid process also contains the air cell, but that is not the part of the paranasal sinus. It will not drain into the nasal cavity. This is an important point to remember. Okay, so these are the bones of the face. These are the two nasal bones joined in the midline. This one is your lower jaw, the bone of your lower jaw or the mandible, and this is the only movable bone in your skull which helps in chewing and speaking. And this one here is the zygomatic bone, which is the bone of your cheekbone. This is maxilla, and this is the bone of your upper jaw. These two are the palatine bones which form the hard palate of your mouth. This one is the vomer bone. Okay, so these are the lacrimal bones, and these lacrimal bones will lie lateral to the nasal bones. These are the nasal bones, and you can see that these are lying lateral to the nasal bones, and they are two in number. यहाँ पर आपको सिर्फ एक साइड की lacrimal bone show हुई है. This is the base of the skull, and we will discuss it in detail. This is the hyoid bone, and this is the inferior nasal concha. You can appreciate the superior and middle nasal concha, which are the part of the ethmoid bone, but the inferior nasal concha is independent. Okay. Another important thing that you should know is we divide the cranium into two parts. There will be a vault or the outer covering of the skull, this one here, and we call it the vault of the skull. And then comes the base of the skull. When we remove the vault of the skull, then this is what we get. And the base of the skull accommodate the brain and the various nerves, vessels, and various very important structures. So this is called the base of the skull. The base of the skull from when we look at it from inferior aspect, and the base of the skull when we look at it from the superior aspect. So now we will discuss them in detail. Starting with the frontal bone. This is the bone of the forehead. You can see that this is the bone of your forehead lying anteriorly, and it forms part of the orbital cavities or the eye sockets and the prominent ridges above the eyes, the supraorbital margins. You can see that these are also taking part in the formation of the orbital cavity, and these prominent ridges that you can appreciate are called the supraorbital margins. At this part here, you will find the frontal nasal sinuses, which accommodate the frontal sinuses. Just above the supraorbital margins within the bone are two air-filled cavities or sinuses lined with the ciliated mucous membrane, which open into the nasal cavity. So these are the paranasal sinuses. Frontal sinus is a paranasal sinus, so it will definitely drain into the nasal cavity. The coronal suture joins the frontal and the parietal bones. You can appreciate this suture here, which is called the coronal suture, and at this point you can see that the parietal bones and the frontal bone both are joining. So this suture, which is called the coronal suture, is going to join the frontal and the parietal bones. The bone, another important point is that the frontal bone forms other fibrous joints as well, with the sphenoid bone, zygomatic, lacrimal, nasal and ethmoid bones. So when they will join, they will also join and form the sutures, and we name them according to their joints. When it will join with the lacrimal bone here, then we will call this suture the fronto-lacrimal suture. When the frontal bone will join with the nasal bone at this part at this point, then we will call this suture as the frontonasal suture. Then the frontal bone will join with the ethmoid bone, then we will call this suture the fronto-ethmoidal suture. When it will join with the maxilla, then we will call it the fronto-maxillary suture, and when it will join with the zygomatic bone here, then we will call this suture the zygomatic frontal suture, and when it will join with the sphenoid bone, then we will call it this suture the sphenoido frontal suture, and when it forms the joint with the parietal bone, then we will call that suture the coronal suture. Okay. Next is the parietal bone, and we have already discussed that the parietal bones form the sides and roof of the skull, and these two bones, they basically articulate with each other at the sagittal suture, and with the frontal bone at the coronal suture, and with the occipital bone at the lambdoid suture, and with the temporal bones and the squamous suture. Now we will look at all these sutures individually. Point 1 that we discussed is that the parietal bone forms the side of your skull, and it also forms the roof of your skull. In this picture, in this image, you can appreciate two sutures. The joint that parietal bone forms with the frontal bone is called the coronal suture. When the two parietal bones join at the midline, then this suture is called the sagittal suture. When the parietal bones will join with the occipital bone, then you can appreciate a lambda shape here, which is called the lambdoid suture. So this is basically a joint between these two parietal bones and the occipital bone. This is the coronal suture, which is a joint between the parietal and the frontal bones. This one here is the sagittal suture, and this suture is between the two parietal bones, and this one is a lambdoid suture, which is a suture between the parietal bones and the occipital bone. And this one is the squamous suture, which is a joint between the squamous part of the temporal bone and the parietal bone. So your parietal bone articulate with all the bones of your skull. Okay, so next is the temporal bone. These bones lie one on each side of the head and form the fibrous immovable joints with the parietal, occipital, sphenoid, and zygomatic bones. So these bones articulate with the parietal that we saw. They form a joint with the parietal bones at the squamous suture, with the occipital, with the sphenoid, and with the zygomatic bones. The squamous part, which was a fan-shaped part of the temporal bone, is a thin fan-shaped area that articulates with the parietal bone. The zygomatic articulates with the zygomatic bone to form the zygomatic arch, which is the cheekbone. The zygomatic process will articulate with the temporal bone as well. The mastoid part contains the mastoid process, a thick end region easily felt behind the ear. It contains a large number of very small ear sinuses that communicate with the middle ear and are lined with the squamous epithelium. But these are not the paranasal sinuses, and they will not drain in the nasal cavity. These communicate with the middle ear and are lined with the squamous epithelium, not the ciliated mucous epithelium. The petrous portion forms part of the base of the skull and contains the organs of hearing and balance. The temporal bone articulates with the mandible at the temporomandibular joint. This is really very important. And this joint is also known as TMJ joint, which is only the movable joint of the skull. Immediately behind this articulating surface is the external acute stigmatus, or the auditory canal, which passes inwards towards the petrous portion of the bone, which forms the base of the skull, where you can appreciate the internal acute stigmatus. The styloid process projects from the lower process of the temporal bone and supports the hyoid bone and muscles associated with the tongue and the larynx. So this is the structure that we have already discussed, and this part will articulate with your zygomatic bone. This is the squamous part of your temporal bone, and this will join with the parietal bone and form the squamous suture. This is the external acoustic meatus, or the external auditory canal. This is encircled with the red is the mastoid process, and it contains the mastoid ear cells, and the sharp projection is the styloid process, which gives attachment to various muscles. At the inferior aspect, you can clearly see the articulation of the temporal bone. Here you can appreciate the articulation of your temporal bone with the occipital bone. Next is the occipital bone. This bone forms the back of the head and part of the base of the skull. It has immovable fibrous joint with the parietal, temporal, and sphenoid bones. Its inner surface is deeply concave, and the concavity is occupied by the occipital lobes of the cerebrum and by the cerebellum. The occiput has two articular condyles that form the condylite joints with the first bone of the vertebral column, the atlas. Okay, so now here you can appreciate these two are the condylar processes of the occipital bone, and these are going to join with the C1 vertebrae, which is atlas, and this joint basically is responsible for the nodding of your head. The joint between the atlas and axis, C1 and C2 vertebrae, is the pivot joint, which will help in the rotation of your head, and this is the condylite joint, which is between the occipital condyles and the C1 vertebra, which is atlas, and this is responsible for the nodding movement of your head. This protuberance here is called the external protuberance of the occipital bone, and you can feel it behind your head. And the occipital bone, as we have already discussed, forms the base of the skull as well, and this mostly forms the posterior part of the base of the skull, or the posterior cranial fossa, and it accommodates the cerebrum and cerebellar hemispheres, and that's why these are concave. Okay, then comes the sphenoid bone. Another important thing is this foramen here, this foramen, which is called the foramen magnum, and this is a large hole, and this hole is responsible for the passage of the spinal cord. Next is the sphenoid bone, and this bone occupies the middle portion of the base of the skull, and it articulates with the occipital, temporal, parietal and the frontal bone. It links the cranial and the facial bones and cross braces the skull. On the superior surface in the middle of the bone is a little saddle-shaped depression, the hypophyseal fossa, which is called the sella turcica, in which the pituitary gland rests. The body of the bone contains some fairly large air sinuses lined with a ciliated mucous membrane with openings into the nasal cavity, which are the sphenoid penanasal sinuses. So here this groove that you can appreciate in the sphenoid bone, this one, this one is the sella turcica, which basically accommodates the pituitary gland. This is also called the hypophyseal fossa. Next is the ethmoid bone. The ethmoid bone occupies the interior part of the base of the skull and helps to form the orbital cavity, the nasal septum and the lateral walls of the nasal cavity. On each side are two projections into the nasal cavity, the superior and the middle nasal concha or the turbinates processes. It is a very delicate bone containing many air sinuses lined with the ciliated epithelium and with openings into the nasal cavity. The horizontal flattened part, the cribriform plate, forms the roof of the nasal cavity and has numerous small foramina through which the nerve fibers of the olfactory nerve, sense of smell, pass upwards from the nasal cavity to the brain. There is also a very fine perpendicular plate of the bone that forms the upper part of the nasal cavity. Okay, so in the interior cranial fossa, you will appreciate the crista galli, this part of the ethmoid bone, and the cribriform plate, this part. So you can appreciate the small openings in the cribriform plate, and from here the olfactory nerve basically passes from the nasal cavity into the brain. And we have already talked about the perpendicular plate, which forms the upper part of your nasal septum, and the crista galli is another important structure, which is basically a horizontal flattened part, and this basically gives attachment to the falx cerebri, and falx cerebri separates the hemispheres of your brain, the cerebral hemispheres. So it gives attachment, the interior attachment to the falx cerebri. Now we will discuss about the bones of the face. Zygomatic bones. The zygomatic bone originates as two bones that before birth they will be two, and after that they will fuse. They form the prominences of the cheeks and part of the floor and lateral walls of the orbital cavities. Maxilla, which is the upper jaw bone, this originates as two bones, but fusion takes place before birth. The maxilla forms upper jaw, the interior part of the roof of the mouth, the lateral walls of the nasal cavity, and part of the floor of the orbital cavities. The alveolar ridges or processes projects downwards and carries the upper teeth. On each side is a large air sinus, the maxillary sinus, lined with the ciliated mucous membrane and with openings into the nasal cavity. Once again, because this is a paranasal sinus, so it will definitely open into the nasal cavity. Nasal bones, these are two small flat bones that form the great part of the lateral and the superior surfaces of the bridge of your nose. Lacrimal bones, these two small bones are posterior and lateral to the nasal bones, which we have already seen, and form part of the medial walls of the orbital cavities. These will form the medial walls of the orbital cavities, but they lie lateral to your nasal bones. And there will be a foramen, which is called where the nasolacrimal duct passes, and it carries tears from the medial canthus of your eye to the nasal cavity. Next is vomer, and this is a thin flat bone that extends upwards from the middle of the hard palate to form most of the inferior part of the nasal septum. So this is basically forms most of the inferior part of your nasal septum. Superiorly, it articulates with the perpendicular plate of the ethmoid bone. Then comes the palatine bones. These are two small L-shaped bones. The horizontal parts unite to form the posterior part of the hard palate, and the perpendicular project upwards to form part of the lateral walls of the nasal cavities. So it takes part in the formation of the lateral walls of the nasal cavities, and the horizontal part will unite to form the posterior part of the hard palate. At their upper extremities, they form part of the orbital cavities. Inferior concha. Each concha is a screw-shaped bone which forms part of the lateral wall of the nasal cavity and projects into it below the middle concha, which was a part of the ethmoid bone. The superior and middle conchas are parts of the ethmoid bone. The concha collectively increase the surface area in the nasal cavity, allowing the inspired air to be warmed and humidified more effectively. Mandible, which is the lower jaw bone. This is the lower jaw, the only movable bone of the skull. It originates as two parts that unite at the midline. Each half consists of two main parts: a curved body with the alveolar ridge containing the lower teeth and the ramus, which projects upwards almost at right angle to the posterior end of the body. At the upper end of the ramus will divide into the condylar processes, which articulates with the temporal bone to form the TMJ joint, and the coronite process, which gives attachment to the muscles and ligaments that close the jaw. The point where the ramus joins the body is called the angle of the jaw. Let's look at the mandible. Okay. These are the alveolar ridges from where you can see the teeth rising, and this part is called the body of the mandible. This part where the ramus and the body join is called the angle of the mandible. This part is called the ramus of the mandible. These two are the processes. This process basically forms the temporomandibular joint with the mandibular fossa, which lies in the temporal bone. This is the coronite process of the mandible. Once again, this is the body of the mandible. This is the ramus of the mandible, and where the body and the ramus join, this part is called the angle of the mandible. These are the alveolar ridges. This is the coronite process. This is the condyle of your mandible, and this basically join or articulates with the mandibular fossa, which is the part of the temporal bone, and forms a TMJ joint, which is the only movable joint in your skull. You can appreciate the temporomandibular joint here. The condylar process of the mandible is articulating with the mandibular fossa, which is a part of the parietal bone, and forming the temporal mandibular joint. Then is the hyoid bone. This is an isolated horseshoe-shaped bone lying in the soft tissues of the neck, just above the larynx and below the mandible. It does not articulate with any other bone, but it is attached to the styloid process of the temporal bone by ligaments. It supports the larynx and gives attachment to the base of the skull. So this is the hyoid bone, and it has greater horns or greater cornua and the lesser horns or the lesser cornua, and it is lying superior to the larynx, and this is not attached with any other bone, but it is attached with the styloid process by the ligaments. Okay, now we will discuss about the sinuses. Sinuses contain air cells that are present in the sphenoid, ethmoid, maxillary and frontal bones, and the sphenoid, ethmoid, maxillary and frontal air sinuses are called the paranasal sinuses because they will drain into the nasal cavity. They all communicate with the nasal cavity and are lined with the ciliated mucous membrane. This is very important. They give resonance to the voice and reduce the weight of the skull, making it easier to carry. We have already discussed the structure and location of each bone, so now I hope that you can easily appreciate these sinuses. This is the frontal sinus, which is lying in the frontal bone. This is the sphenoid sinus, which is lying in the sphenoid bone. The one highlighted with green is the ethmoid sinus, and this one is the maxillary sinus. So sinusitis is a condition when these sinuses get filled with the mucus, and this condition is very painful. Okay, next is the fontanelle of the skull. At birth, ossification of the cranial sutures is incomplete. Where 3 or more bones meet, there are distinct membranous areas, or the fontanelle. The two largest are the anterior and the posterior. Anterior fontanelle not fully ossified until the child is 12 to 18 months old, and the posterior fontanelle usually ossified around 2 to 3 months after the birth. That's the reason why you can feel the soft area at the interior and the posterior aspect of a baby's head. The skull bones do not fuse earlier to allow for the molding of the baby's head during the childbirth. So basically it accommodates during the birth of the baby for the easy passage through the birth canal during the labor. These are the sutures that we have already discussed: the coronal, sagittal, lambdoid and the squamous sutures. These are the fontanelle in the infants. This one is the interior fontanelle, which is a membranous area and soft in the babies. This is the posterior fontanelle, and this one here is a sphenoidal fontanelle, but the interior and posterior are the most important. Okay, now we will discuss about the base of the skull, which is really very important, and we will appreciate various foramen, and we will appreciate various structures that lies in the base of the skull. Okay, so this foramen or the canal that you can appreciate here is the optical canal, from where the optic nerve passes. This is the cribriform plate of the ethmoid bone, the horizontal plate of the ethmoid bone, and you can appreciate small holes in it from where the olfactory nerve passes from the nasal cavity into the brain. This is the crista galli, and I have already told you that the crista galli is basically responsible to give attachment to the falx cerebri, which divides the hemispheres of the brain. Another important thing that this whole area, which is concave, we call it the anterior cranial fossa because it is concave, so we will call it a fossa. This is the middle cranial fossa. The ethmoid bone is occupying most of the anterior cranial fossa. This bat shaped bone is your sphenoid bone, and this is the part I hope you can appreciate a depression which is called the sella turcica, and it is basically found in the middle cranial fossa where the sphenoid bone lies, and this is a part of your sphenoid bone, and it gives basically it provides space to the pituitary gland, and this is also called the hypophyseal fossa or the sella turcica. Then this part over here is called this part is called the posterior cranial fossa, and this is formed by the occipital bone, and here is a very large hole which is called the foramen magnum, and from this your spinal cord or the brain stem passes, and also the vertebral arteries. Okay, this one is the internal acoustic meatus, the hypoglossal canal for the passage of the hypoglossal nerve. This is the jugular foramina, and this is for the passage of internal jugular vein. Here lies the carotid canal, this one, and this is also very important for the internal carotid artery, which will pass through here, comes into the brain, and here it will form the circulus arteriosus. And I think इतना आपके लिए काफ़ी होगा. So that's all for today, and if you have any question regarding this lecture, then you can ask, and this is very important question, so I will very important lecture, so I will suggest you to please prepare it. Thank you.